Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we want to know, when was your first indication that you might have a medical problem?
I would say years ago, back in high school, exams and tests and different stressors in high school life, and didn't think anything of it. And then it progressed through college and still kind of tried to put it on the back burner, but knew there were problems and knew something was going on. And then there were numerous family tragedies in my family, many deaths that kind of really started to make my symptoms feel really severe. I just had horrible hyperventilating panic attacks, heart palpitations. I passed out a few times, ended up in the emergency room, and I knew something was definitely wrong.
Now, how many doctors did you visit before you got a correct diagnosis by Dr. Sulfur?
I saw many doctors.
How many is many?
I saw, my gosh, probably over 20. I saw between the emergency room doctors. I landed in the emergency room many times because nobody knew what to do and nobody could help me. I saw 4 cardiologists. I saw a couple psychologists, a couple psychiatrists. I saw neurologists. I saw internal medicine doctors, and also personal family doctors in my family as well that just couldn't seem to figure out what was going on until I met Dr. Sulfur.
And at what point did a doctor say to you, maybe this is a mental problem and not a physical one?
It was rather quickly. They told me right away that it seemed to be a mental problem since due to tragedies and family stressors. They explained to me, well, you're going through all kinds of trauma and you're going through a lot of problems, and this is definitely a mental problem, and you need to seek psychiatric help and probably get on some antidepressants, and that'll probably help alleviate the symptoms, and also go through years of psychological therapy. And so they pretty much told me all along that it was completely in my head, and I believed them for years.
Now, how did this medical problem impact your life, Joy?
Oh, boy. I would say that for the past few years, I tried to confide in my family. I tried to confide in my husband, tried to turn to someone to help me, and I felt like I was completely alone. Everyone told me I was a hypochondriac, that it was very scary, and there were times that my husband couldn't even deal with me. He just couldn't deal with the panic attacks, the insomnia, the constant fear that I had, the constant palpitations that I felt, the shortness of breath. He thought that I was just a complete hypochondriac, and it was very scary not to just feel completely alone, like you had no one you could trust and no one that really could find out what was really wrong with you. Because I knew it wasn't all in my head. I knew there were physical manifestations, and I knew that there were a lot of other things going on.
So when you went to Dr. Sulfur, what you did was first get validated, saying you're not crazy?
Yes. Right away, Dr. Sulfur, I explained to him my symptoms, explained to him my past history, history of seeing many doctors, history of symptoms of insomnia, of shortness of breath, of chest pain, and he immediately came over and put a stethoscope on my chest and heard the click like almost immediately, and he said, "Oh, you have mitral valve prolapse." And I was, whoa, it was just a revelation. Wow, that's great. Now what do I do? It was just, to me, it was just the happiest day of my life to know that I had something, and I knew, and that it was not all in my head. And he explained to me, no, it's not all in your head. This is something that can be treated, and this is a syndrome that you can find a lot of treatment for, and with different modifications you can go on with your life and be happy and productive.
So, Dr. Sulfur, would you say that sometimes you touch on cardiology and you touch on psychotherapy, too, at the same time?
Well, I don't presume to touch on psychotherapy. We have in the practice a full-time Florida licensed mental health counselor that's unique to a cardiology practice that deals with cardiac patients in specific. And
so you then refer the patient then to her?
Directly.
But you are familiar with how to calm the patient down and take these symptoms and say, okay, I've got someone that's going to take care of you from here.
I educate them on the medical aspects and then leave the stress reduction and stress management aspects to the professionals.
Okay. Now, we talked before, there's approximately 17% of the female population has this problem, and it's a smaller population for men, correct?
Yes, you do your homework, as 17% was the number that has been bantered about for quite some time. Initially, it was the Framingham study in Boston that showed this in the 50s even, that 17% of women between a certain age group can have this. That's probably a little high. We think it's a little bit lower now, but it still is a huge portion of our population. Millions and millions of people walk around with this. Women tend to seek medical care for it more so than men, but we think that it may be pretty much equal, but it is more often that you'll see in your office a woman coming asking for help for it.
So that would attribute to a lower percentage for men.
Yes.
They don't go out and seek for that type of help.
Exactly.
Okay, now Joy, tell me something. Have you learned to live with mitral valve prolapse pretty freely?
Yes, I would believe I have. I still have some hurdles to overcome, I'm sure, but I feel that I've overcome the most unbelievable obstacles in the beginning, which was rapid palpitations, severe shortness of breath, complete and total insomnia, the understanding of not knowing what was going on with my body, not understanding my body, not understanding why certain things were happening, not understanding anything at all. And I was referred to Mina Sofer, Dr. Sofer's psychotherapist, and she completely sat me down, and it was a very tearful but wonderful session where she explained everything to me, that I could learn to understand all these symptoms and learn how to live with mitral valve prolapse just by making simple modifications in my lifestyle, which would be, for me, caffeine. I can't have any caffeine at all. Diet, taking out certain sugars in my diet, certain carbohydrates. I wasn't having enough protein, so it's like my sugar wasn't right.
So you've learned to watch your diet as well.
My diet, exercise. I exercise as much as I possibly can. I sleep better, I feel better, and also through stress modifications such as relaxation tapes.
Which we have right here.
Wonderful tape.